What if the greatest teaching Jesus ever gave about worry was hidden in a word that most people have never heard? A word spoken in the language he used every day. A word that carried far more than comfort, far more than encouragement, and far more than the simple idea of peace. Today, anxiety has become one of the defining experiences of modern life. Millions wake up already burdened by fears about money, health, relationships, and an uncertain future. Yet nearly 2,000 years ago, Jesus addressed this very condition, not as a philosopher, not as a therapist, but as a teacher of spiritual reality. The remarkable part is that the deepest layer of his message may have been lost when his words moved from Aramaic into other languages. Behind the familiar teachings about not worrying lies a forgotten expression that reveals an entirely different understanding of inner rest. Before this teaching ends, you will discover the ancient Aramaic word SHLAMA, the word connected to wholeness, completeness, and the kind of peace that remains steady even when life feels uncertain. Once you understand what this word truly means, you may never look at stress and worry the same way again. Most people believe that worry begins in the mind. They assume that anxiety is simply the result of too many problems, too many responsibilities, or too many uncertainties. But the teachings associated with Jesus suggest something much deeper. In the Gospel of Matthew chapter 6, he asks a question that still echoes across centuries. Why worry about tomorrow? At first glance, the statement appears simple, yet when viewed through the lens of the Aramaic language, it reveals a profound spiritual principle. The human mind constantly searches for security in future outcomes. It creates scenarios, imagines dangers, and attempts to control events that have not happened. This endless mental activity generates tension because the future can never be fully controlled. The more a person tries to predict every possibility, the more trapped they become inside fear itself. Ancient Aramaic spirituality viewed this condition as a separation from the present reality of divine provision. When a person becomes consumed by worry, their attention leaves the present moment and begins living inside imagined futures. Their energy becomes fragmented. Their thoughts become divided. Their inner world loses its center. This is where the forgotten word enters the story. The word is SHLAMA. While many translations reduce it to the word peace, its original meaning is much richer. SHLAMA describes a state of wholeness, harmony, completeness, and inner integration. It is the condition of a person whose heart, mind, and spirit are no longer pulling in different directions. The significance of this becomes extraordinary when applied to the teachings of Jesus. He was not merely telling people to stop worrying. He was inviting them into SHLAMA. He was pointing toward a state where inner completeness replaces fragmentation. In this understanding, worry is not simply nervous thinking. Worry is the experience of being divided within oneself. SHLAMA is the restoration of unity. The question is no longer how to eliminate every problem from life. The question becomes how to return to the state of wholeness that exists beneath those problems. This forgotten perspective changes everything about how we understand stress, anxiety, and spiritual peace. To understand why SHLAMA is so powerful, it is necessary to look beyond modern definitions of peace. Today, peace is often imagined as the absence of conflict. People think they will finally feel calm when the bills are paid, when the diagnosis improves, when the relationship heals, or when the uncertainty disappears. But the Aramaic concept behind SHLAMA points in the opposite direction. It suggests that true peace does not come after circumstances change. It begins before circumstances change. It arises from an inner condition that exists independently of external events. Imagine standing in the center of a storm. The winds are strong. The noise is overwhelming. Everything around you appears unstable. Yet within you there is a place that remains unmoved. This is the image carried by SHLAMA. It is not escape from life's challenges. It is stability within them. This understanding helps explain why Jesus could remain calm in situations that frightened others. Again and again, the Gospels portray him responding to chaos with clarity rather than panic. His teachings consistently directed attention away from fear and toward trust, away from scarcity and toward provision, away from division and toward wholeness. What makes this teaching especially relevant today is that modern life often encourages the exact opposite. News cycles amplify fear. Social media magnifies comparison. Economic uncertainty fuels Anxiety. Many people spend their lives reacting to external pressures without ever discovering the deeper center within themselves. The ancient Aramaic teaching of SHLAMA offers another path. It reminds us that peace is not something we chase, it is something we uncover. It is the natural condition that emerges when the mind stops scattering its energy across countless fears and returns to the present reality of life. If you made it this far, it means that some part of you is already seeking something beyond information. You are seeking awakening itself. I created 2 study guides to help turn that search into a daily practice rather than just a passing feeling. You'll find the links to both guides in the pinned comment below. Use them whenever you feel ready to go deeper on your journey. As we continue, we will explore how Jesus used this forgotten understanding to transform fear, why worry weakens spiritual perception, and how the ancient meaning of SHLAMA can become a practical tool for facing stress, uncertainty, and the challenges of everyday life. If SHLAMA represents wholeness, then the next question naturally emerges. What causes human beings to lose that wholeness in the first place? The answer can be found in a pattern that appears throughout the teachings of Jesus. Again and again, he addressed people who were living under the influence of fear. Some feared sickness. Others feared rejection. Many feared scarcity. Some feared death itself. Although the situations were different, the underlying condition was remarkably similar. Their attention had become captured by something outside themselves. Their minds were no longer anchored in what was present. Instead, they were dominated by what might happen next. This is one of the hidden mechanisms of worry. Fear convinces the mind that imagining future problems will somehow protect us from them. It whispers that constant vigilance is wisdom. It suggests that anxiety is a form of preparation. Yet in reality, excessive worry rarely prepares a person for the future. More often, it steals their ability to experience the present. Hours become consumed by imagined conversations that never occur. Energy is drained by scenarios that never unfold. Opportunities are missed because attention is trapped inside possibilities that exist only in the mind. The Aramaic perspective behind SHLAMA reveals why this happens. Human beings are designed to function as integrated beings. Thought, emotion, body, and spirit are meant to work together in harmony. But worry divides these elements. The body remains in the present, while the mind races into the future. The emotions react to imagined dangers, while the spirit struggles to remain grounded. This internal division creates exhaustion, because different parts of the person are moving in different directions at the same time. A powerful example appears in the teachings about the birds of the air and the lilies of the field. Jesus invited his listeners to observe nature carefully. The birds did not spend their days consumed by future fears. The flowers did not struggle anxiously for their beauty. This was not a call to passivity or irresponsibility. It was an invitation to recognize a deeper principle operating throughout creation. Life flourishes when it functions according to its design. The bird fulfills its nature. The flower fulfills its nature. Human beings flourish when they reconnect with their own spiritual design. Seen through the lens of SHLAMA, this teaching becomes much more profound. The goal is not merely to reduce stress. The goal is to return to alignment. Worry is a symptom of misalignment. It signals that attention has become fragmented and scattered. SHLAMA is the process of gathering that scattered attention and bringing it back into unity. It is the movement from inner conflict toward inner coherence. This may explain why some people experience moments of deep peace even while facing serious challenges. Their circumstances have not necessarily improved, yet something inside them has shifted. They have stopped fighting a battle against countless imaginary futures and returned to the reality of the present moment. In that space, clarity begins to emerge. Strength begins to return. The mind becomes quieter. The heart becomes steadier, and the individual starts to experience the living reality of SHLAMA, not as a concept, but as an inner condition. One of the most overlooked aspects of worry is that it affects far more than emotions. It influences perception itself. When fear dominates the mind, reality becomes distorted. Problems appear larger than they are. Opportunities become harder to recognize. Possibilities disappear behind layers of anxiety. This is why Jesus consistently encouraged people to move beyond fear before attempting to understand deeper spiritual truths. A troubled mind struggles to see clearly because it interprets everything through the lens of uncertainty. Imagine looking into a pool of water. When the surface is calm, the reflection is clear. Every detail can be seen with precision, but when the water is disturbed, the image becomes distorted. The object being reflected has not changed. Only the surface has changed. The same principle applies to human consciousness. Reality itself may remain unchanged, yet worry creates disturbances that prevent accurate perception. Decisions become reactive rather than thoughtful. Small challenges feel overwhelming. The future appears darker than it truly is. This insight helps explain why SHLAMA was never simply about feeling better. It was about seeing more clearly. In the Aramaic worldview, peace and perception were deeply connected. A fragmented mind cannot fully perceive truth because it is constantly distracted by fear. A unified mind becomes capable of wisdom because its energy is no longer scattered. This is one reason why spiritual traditions throughout history have emphasized stillness. Stillness is not the absence of activity. It is the absence of internal conflict. The teachings of Jesus repeatedly point toward this reality. He often withdrew from crowds and noise before important moments. He entered places of silence before making significant decisions. These actions reveal a principle that remains relevant today. Clarity emerges when inner turbulence begins to settle. Wisdom becomes accessible when fear loosens its grip. Direction becomes visible when attention returns to the present moment. The forgotten power of SHLAMA lies in its ability to restore this inner clarity. As the mind becomes less consumed by imagined futures, it regains the ability to recognize what is actually happening. Energy that was previously trapped in worry becomes available for insight, creativity, and purposeful action. The individual stops reacting to life from a place of fear and begins responding from a place of understanding. This transformation does not happen overnight. It develops gradually through awareness and practice. Yet every step toward SHLAMA creates more space between the individual and their fears. Thoughts lose some of their power. Anxiety loses some of its urgency. The future loses some of its ability to dominate the present. And in that growing space, something remarkable begins to emerge. The realization that peace was never waiting somewhere ahead. It was always available beneath the noise, waiting to be remembered. If this teaching is stirring a deep resonance in your heart, it is a sign that your soul is ready to return to its original blueprint. To support you in this transition, my guides explain the layers of meaning behind the first sacred words, offering you a path to clear the interference of the world. The link to access these tools is waiting for you in the pinned comment. At this point, a question may arise. If SHLAMA already exists beneath the noise of worry, why do so many people struggle to experience it? The answer lies in habit. Most individuals have spent years, and sometimes decades, training their minds to focus on problems rather than presence. The mind becomes conditioned to scan for danger. It searches constantly for what could go wrong. Over time, this pattern feels normal. Many people become so accustomed to worry that they mistake it for responsibility. They believe that if they stop worrying, they will stop caring. Yet the teachings associated with Jesus reveal something very different. Concern and worry are not the same thing. Concern allows a person to recognize a challenge and respond wisely. Worry keeps the person trapped in endless cycles of fear without producing meaningful action. One creates movement, the other creates paralysis. This distinction is essential because many people secretly believe their anxiety protects them. They fear that releasing worry will make them careless. In reality, the opposite is often true. A mind consumed by fear becomes less effective, less creative, and less capable of responding intelligently to life's demands. The path toward SHLAMA begins when a person notices this pattern. The moment they become aware that their mind is rehearsing fear rather than engaging reality, a new possibility opens. Instead of following every anxious thought, they can observe it. Instead of identifying with every fear, they can question it. Instead of surrendering their attention to imagined futures, they can return to the present moment where life is actually unfolding. This return to presence is not passive. It is an act of spiritual authority. Every time a person chooses presence over panic, they weaken the old habit of fragmentation. Every time they return to what is real instead of what is imagined, they strengthen the experience of inner unity. Little by little, the divided mind begins to heal. This may be one reason why Jesus so often emphasized faith. Faith, in its deepest sense, is not blind belief. It is trust in a reality greater than fear. Worry says that uncertainty is stronger than hope. Faith says that truth is stronger than uncertainty. Worry predicts loss before it happens. Faith remains open to possibilities that fear cannot see. When viewed through the lens of SHLAMA, faith becomes the bridge that leads the mind back into wholeness. The remarkable discovery is that peace is not achieved by controlling every outcome. Peace emerges when the need to control every outcome begins to dissolve. This is the doorway into SHLAMA, not a life without challenges, but a heart that remains whole in the midst of them. As we approach the end of this teaching, it becomes clear that the forgotten Aramaic word SHLAMA contains a message far deeper than modern translations often convey. It is not merely a greeting. It is not merely a wish for peace. It is a description of a state of being, a condition of completeness, a return to the original harmony that worry attempts to disrupt. Think again about the world around us. Every day, countless voices compete for attention. Headlines predict disaster. Markets rise and fall. Circumstances change without warning. Relationships evolve. Plans shift. Nothing external remains completely stable. If peace depends on external stability, then peace will always remain fragile. It will appear briefly and disappear again with the next challenge. But SHLAMA points toward another possibility. It points toward an inner foundation that remains available regardless of external conditions. Transformation protocol. This is the part of the teaching where information becomes practice. So find a place where you can sit still for the next 60 seconds. Even if your mind is currently loud, breathe in slowly through your nose for 4 counts. And as you silently form the first half of the word in your mind, SHLA. Hold that breath gently for 2 counts. The way a held breath naturally pauses before it releases. Then exhale through your mouth for 6 counts, completing the word as you let go. MASHLI on the inhale. MA on the exhale. SHLAMA, breathed rather than simply spoken. Do this 3 times. Right now, slowly without rushing toward the end of it. Notice that nothing outside of you needed to change for that shift to begin. Your bills did not change. Your inbox did not empty itself. The hard conversation you have been avoiding is still waiting on your calendar. But something underneath all of that may have loosened slightly because SHLAMA was never dependent on your circumstances rearranging themselves first. It was dependent on you remembering it was already yours. Carry this practice into tonight, into tomorrow morning, into the next moment. Worry tries to climb back into the room, uninvited. You do not need a perfect theology or years of study to use it. You only need breath and a willingness to remember what Jesus already gave away freely 2,000 years ago, in a language older than fear itself. If this teaching spoke to your heart, write the word SHLAMA in the comments below. Let it be a reminder that peace is not waiting somewhere in the future. It is available in this moment. And if you wish to continue exploring the hidden Aramaic teachings of Jesus, explore our study guides linked in the first comment. They were created to help transform these ancient insights into a living daily practice. And if this teaching found you today, subscribe to this channel. Every week we go deeper into that were always meant to be yours.